I'll have to forgive me a little bit, a little congested. Try and keep my voice up. Sexy. My voice isn't normally this deep. Oh, thank you. You're too kind. This is the May 27, 2014 meeting of the Fairfield Town Planning and Zoning Commission. First item on our agenda is meeting minutes for May 20th, 2014. Does everybody have a copy of that? We had quite a few items we voted on. Anyone have any comments, questions? I reviewed it. I didn't see anything that needed to be changed.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Motion approved by Commissioner Alessi, second by Commissioner Barretts.
Just a point of order, Mr. Chairman, it's Mr. Corcoran's turn to sit for Mrs. Neely, so...
Very good, very good. Commissioner Corcoran, you're on. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve. Any comments, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? The minutes pass unanimously. Next item on our agenda is 2226 Black Rock Turnpike. Request of Clearview Holdings, LLC for a 50% release of a $22,500 bond pertaining to special permit improvements in a designed commercial district. This was tabled last meeting on May 20.
We recommend it remain on the table at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Remain on the table? Okay. Motion to table by Commissioner Jacobson.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi. That's open for discussion. Is there any update or just a table?
No, last week you discussed the enclosure or the screening around the top of the building to hide the mechanical enclosure. That information was passed on. The architect was present. They need to, it was only last Tuesday, they need to dialogue with their client and get back to us on
Very
the
good.
approach.
So should we put this over for 2 meetings, or would you suggest
No, I don't see any
next
problem with just kind of leaving, leaving it
Letting
there
it
as a
stay.
bookmark item, and if we've got progress to report, then we can act. Otherwise, it can just kind of stay there as a placeholder.
Okay, very good, very good. Anyone else? Yes? No. No. I mean, I know that it's not done, but it's not.
They did some additional screening from when the building was first done, but the discussion last week was to extend that screening around the perimeter of the entirety of the roof rather than just the way it is. So, yeah, they've got a picket kind of railing that does go all the way around, but we're talking about putting some solid panels in there in their place. They're looking at that plus one other alternative that they want to discuss with their client first, and then we'll either comply with what you had initially suggested or come back with an alternative proposal.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions, comments? Motion is to table the item. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The item is tabled unanimously. Next item is section new applications to recommend a public hearing. 386 Commerce Drive, special exception and coastal site plan application of D&D Realty LLC for approval of location and construction of an automobile dealership in a designed industrial district.
All right, this is on Commerce Drive, roughly across the street from where the Porsche dealership is. For many years, it was a white GMC trucking business. It's a long, slender building that's been vacant for quite some time. There have been other automotive users that have leased the parking lot to store vehicles on, but they're looking to do new construction to establish a new dealership here. I believe it's going to be the Hyundai dealership moving from the Post Road down to this location in a new building. It is a special exception, does require a public hearing.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Motion to move public hearing.
Motion to move to public hearing by Commissioner Alessi. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Any comments, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. I neglected to say this at the front of the meeting. We have on our agenda 3 items for public hearing. We did get notice from the applicant in the second item, that's 1150 Post Road, that will not be going forward tonight. That is going to be rescheduled to another night. So if anyone is here from the public on item number 2, 1150 Post Road, That will not be going forward tonight. Next item on our agenda is 3553, 3571 Post Road, and 886 Kings Highway West. It's a zone change application of Walgreens Eastern Co., Inc. to establish a design commercial district on land presently zoned designed industrial district and Residence B.
Okay, this is,
That was a mouthful.
yes, well executed. This is the Southport section of the Post Road, directly opposite where Hulse Highway intersects with the Post Road, at the traffic light there. You may see there was an old house there. It was demolished a year or so ago, and there's been some site clearing on that site. And the proposal is to change the zone as outlined here, design commercial for Walgreens. This is the parcel immediately adjacent to the Garlic and Herbs site that was fairly recently approved by this commission for retail use. So it would be directly next door in their proposed driveway. It would be at the south face of the traffic light that's at Hulse Highway and the Post Road.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Approved to take the public hearing.
Motion approved by Commissioner Kennelly.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next item is related, 3541, 3571 Post Road and 886 Kings Highway West. Special permit and coastal site plan application of Walgreen Eastern Co., Inc. pertaining to the construction of a new retail building in a designed commercial district.
Same general. The reason the discrepancy in the address numbers is this is an aggregation of 3 parcels, one of which is already zoned commercial. So that parcel is not included in the zone change listing, but it is included in the site plan proposal. So this is the sister application to the previous one for the actual site construction. Does require public hearing.
Right. And we'll put those on for the same time. Can I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Commissioner Alessi. Second by Commissioner Jacobson. Any comments, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next item is under old business, 1876 Bronson Road. Application of 1876 Bronson Road LLC for facade improvements in Neighborhood Design District. Public hearing was on May 20, 2014. Present Wagner, Alessi, Barretts, Jacobson, Coleman, Corcoran, and Francis.
Okay, you heard this last week. This is a facade renovation to the retail building that's at the foot of Greenfield Hill at Bronson and Hillside Road. Some of the input from the hearing last week included some discussion about the location of the dumpster enclosure. The applicant, at their rebuttal, agreed that they could relocate the trash enclosure to the Bronson Road side of the property that has commercial neighbors across the street rather than residential. And they also indicated that a specific signage plan would be the subject of a future application once their specific retail tenant is identified. But essentially what this is to do some interior refitting of this building to make it one tenant space and an upgrade of the exterior facade, to spruce up the building.
Right. Well, just for clarity, applicant made clear that this was solely an application for facade renovations. There was no floor plan. They're not correct. They did not submit anything about combining or renovation on interior spaces with this application.
That's correct. I think that's their intent, but it is retail space, so if it turns out to be more than one tenant, that's fine. The building as a whole does not exceed your maximum allowance for a single retail occupant, so it could be one or more retail tenancies. I think their goal is to market it to a single tenant, but if that doesn't happen, it could, you're right, it could be multiple tenancies.
Right.
But
Okay.
the crux of this application is to do the facelift, the facade renovation of the building.
Right. Okay. So can I have a motion to open for discussion?
I was going to move to approve it.
Motion approved by Commissioner Barretts.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi.
Okay, conditions.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have conditions. You want to go first?
Go ahead, you probably got the same conditions.
go ahead.
No, I mean.
Commissioner Barron.
Yeah, I did have an opportunity to visit the site, I mean, it's sorely in need of a facade renovation, and overall, I think, it's a good application, and that it will improve the aesthetics of this site, which is just such a focal point for Greenfield Hill. I was concerned, and I understand the neighbors' concerns about the dumpster. I would condition my motion, I should have said, on the relocation of the dumpster enclosure to the west side, and that's the Bronson Road side. Is that right? And then, I understand a signage plan will come later. There was a lot of concerns from neighbor about lighting. Any new lighting would have to be dark sky compliant as per our regulations. What do we do to make sure that happens? Is that just over the counter with you when it comes, or is there a condition we particularly attach that we want to see the lighting plan?
Yeah, you could do it one of two ways. That is you say that any new lighting must comply with our section regarding dark sky compliant, which would bolster that, in which case it would be a staff level review. If you want to see it as part of their overall signage plan, you can request that they come forth with a subsequent plan to show you what their lighting design is. So it could be a lighting design subject to your review in the future, or just emphasize the fact that it has to be dark sky compliant at staff level review. It could be either way.
Okay.
Right. I mean, the same, I think, is true of the sign plan. I mean, they made the representation that any signs.
Yeah, they weren't ready to commit to anything yet without knowing the tenant, and they said that they would come back to you for that plan, and you could require the same with respect to the lighting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, it's not like I'm sure the staff would do a fine job of review. I just want to make sure that happens. So to do the facade, the tenant moves in, nothing really happens with the lighting. And,
Right.
Right now it's not compliant. I think this is the opportunity to make it so. So, I'm not sure what condition I want, but that would. Yeah, I definitely want something in there about the lighting and the signage as a new another application. But overall, I was pretty much in favor of this application.
Commissioner Alessi.
No, I'm in favor of the application too. My conditions would have been definitely move the garbage to the west and the bike rack to the east, like was discussed with the architect. And I was just going to say come back with a lighting and sign plan when they're ready. Have a tenant do it, something like that. Just combine it together rather than just a separate sign plan or whatever. I mean, those are the concerns from the residents. There were no other concerns, so that's it. I'm for it.
Anyone else?
If they've decided anything yet. Has the architect gotten back to you about that?
Well, they pretty much agreed at the hearing that they could flip the location to the Bronson
that
Road
would be
side and
good.
put the bike racks on the Hillside Road side. They proposed it initially on the Hillside side because that's where the adjacent property
Right.
has theirs, so they were going to kind of
That's
butt them together.
good.
But understanding the juxtaposition of the residences on that side versus commercial on the other, they're more than willing to flip that orientation.
Yeah, okay. And I support your suggestions about the lighting. He said he was removing all the lighting, didn't he?
Correct.
Yeah, so he's got to come back with something.
Yeah.
Okay. And
That was the
signage.
representation, was that in the facade renovation, they were going to remove all the lighting.
Yeah.
And then when they had a new plan, that they would come back.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So I just wanted to make it clear, as I did in the summary, that this application is for facade renovations. One of the other members of the public had some concerns about a generator. There is no generator. There's no site plan. There's no generator that's been proposed in this application. This is an excellent application. The renovations really do look amazing, and it is well needed. And so I really do think we should support this. with the conditions that have been expressed. So with that, if there's nobody else has any comments, Commissioner Barrett's, how do you want to structure that?
As Mr. Levin said, I condition on the moving the dumpster and then a separate lighting and sign plan be submitted.
I would suggest that they be three conditions. One on the dumpster
Yep.
orientation. One is that any future lighting would be subject to a application or a plan review by this commission. And thirdly, that the signage be subject to its own review. So
Yep.
they could be independent, but
Right.
make it three separate conditions.
I think that's right.
Okay.
So you'll adopt that?
Yeah, I'll adopt that. Right, they could come back with the lighting and not have the tenant.
Right. Or they could come back jointly if they wish, but they could come
Okay,
back.
I'll adopt that. I'll adopt those three conditions.
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Alessi, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The item carries unanimously with conditions as stated. Next item on our agenda is 45 Sherman Street, special permit application of Jonathan and Carol Passmore for additions to expand residential use in a central design district. Public hearing was on May 20, 2014. Present, Wagner, Alessi, Barretts, Jacobson, Coleman, Corcoran, and Francis.
Okay, also heard last week, this is an existing mixed-use with office on the first floor and a residential dwelling unit on the second and third floor. This is a proposal to expand the size of the residential unit. It's not creating any additional units, just expanding the one existing unit. And as outlined in the application, there was a ZBA variance for this in February of this year to allow that residential percentage to exceed 50%. It's at 51.4% of the total square footage. Other than that, it's an addition to an existing three-story mixed-use building.
Okay. Have a motion? Motion approved by Commissioner Jacobson.
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Commissioner Jacobson?
I think it's a good application. It's not expanding the footprint, and it's only slightly over the 50%, and I support it.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Corcoran?
I don't find any reason to object to this application. That's all.
Very
I
good.
just want to make sure it's, there is a change to the footprint. It's not, it's an L-shaped addition. It's replacing a rear porch structure, so it's not a very large increase to the footprint, but I just want to make sure it was understood that there is a change to the footprint here.
Does it change your view at all?
No.
It is pretty minor.
Yeah.
It is pretty minor. It's a good renovation of the building, and meets the use that they are looking to put to it. Anyone else? No?
Yeah.
Commissioner Barretts?
Yeah, I would just like to see, just a side plan, not for this application, but they said they were doing separately. I don't know if we need to condition that. Just, driving down that street, the mixed use, you can all tell it's mixed use. It looks like just a residence right now.
Yep.
And I know they're going to use it for office, but it would be something good to signify that it's like, I think that would be more.
Yeah, I don't know that they even have a commercial sign there now, but
They don't.
to the
They
extent
don't.
that they plan to do so, they would require a
Right.
plan for you. So
Yeah.
we can include that.
Usually I don't like, this is one case where I'd actually welcome a sign. I think a sign would actually kind of make it more in keeping with the rest of the street.
Well, it's next to similarly styled buildings.
Yeah.
Mr. Fallon, who's in the audience,
Right.
and
Who has a sign.
Who has a sign? Yeah, of course he has a sign. No. So yes, I think that's a good condition. So let's see. We had Commissioner Jacobson. Would you adopt that? Yes. And Commissioner Corcoran? Yes. All right. So we have modification approved by the move-ins. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Item carries unanimously with conditions as stated. Next item is 95 Chester Place, re-subdivision and coastal site plan application of Walter Buck for 2 lots in an R3 zone. Public hearing May 20, 2014. Present were Wagner, Alessi, Barretts, Jacobson, Coleman, Corcoran, and Francis.
Okay, also heard last week, historically, this was a property that was once approved for a 4-lot subdivision and a private road. back in the 80s, late 80s, that was subsequently sold, and the buyer at that time disbanded, filed a map undoing the subdivision, basically putting it back to a single property. More recently, it went through a wetlands process as a 3-lot subdivision. Now it's before you as a 2-lot subdivision that complies in all respects with the R3 zone. You took note of the fact at the hearing that they are dedicating a strip of land to create a 50-foot wide right-of-way along Chester Place, along the frontage of this property. The only a recommended condition that we are proposing is in as much as Chester Place has recently been declared a scenic road, that the driveway on lot number 1 should be aligned with the existing opening in the stone wall. There's a stone wall there now. There is an opening at one point on that wall that could support a driveway, so that the driveway for that lot should line up with that existing opening so that they don't have to create an additional opening in the stone wall for that lot. Other than that, it complies in all respects.
No disturbance to the existing stone wall?
Well, with respect to lot 1, the second lot will need an opening, but there's an existing opening already along the frontage of lot 1. Okay. So to minimize the disturbance to the existing wall.
Motion approved by Commissioner Alessi.
With the condition, no disturbance to the stone wall for the driveway on lot 1.
Second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Jacobson seconds the motion. Any discussion? Comments?
Met all our regulations. The neighbors didn't have any issues with it. They granted us the right of way, so I have no problems with this application.
Yeah, I thought it was significant. You know, the applicant here did give notice to all the neighbors, conducted an informational meeting. There was no one from the public spoke at the public hearing, let alone voicing any opposition to the subdivision. It meets our regulations, and including the granting of the right-of-way. So I think we should approve the application with the condition. Anyone else? No? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Item passes unanimously with conditions as stated. Next item on our agenda is compliance, 3015 Bronson Road, application of Fairfield Country Day School to expand off-street parking in a AAA zone.
Okay, if you're familiar with Fairfield Country Day School, their campus spans both sides of Bronson Road with their academic core on the east side of the street and some of their athletic and ancillary facilities on the west side of the street. One of the houses they own, which is a faculty house, various times for events, they have parking on the lawn there. What they're looking to do is just, expand, create some formal parking there so that when they have the need, it's not on the lawn. That's become an issue with some of the neighbors. It's unsightly, and they're looking to create a more formalized parking lot on that side of the street for their use. It doesn't expand their facilities in any respect other than to create a more formal paved parking lot where they are already presently in use.
Thank you. Have a motion? Motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly, second by Commissioner Jacobson. Any discussion? Commissioner Kennelly?
I don't have a lot to offer, other than it seems like a reasonable request, and we don't have any pushback from any email or anything I've seen, so I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I should have mentioned additionally that it does also require, subsequent to your approval, review by the Historic District Commission.
Okay.
Do we need any sort of drainage report or anything like that on this, or no?
We have a drainage report. The town engineer has looked at the drainage report and has talked to the site engineer. I don't have any specific recommendations, but if there are some to be forthcoming, I'm confident that they will do that, and we can adopt those if there's any specific requirements that come from that, we can adopt those as conditions. But I don't think it's anything. They're proposing drainage on the site. I don't see that as a problem.
Yeah. Well, it's That's a good point, though. I mean, what should we amend the motion to include as a condition any requirements imposed by engineering?
Yes, yeah, I've spoke to the applicant about that this afternoon, and they're perfectly comfortable with that.
So,
I'll accept that.
all right, so Commissioner Kennelly has accepted the amendment, and it is seconded by Commissioner Jacobson. So I have a question. Apart from this compliance, in terms of paving an additional area of the property, it doesn't impact any of the ingress, egress, or parking,
Right.
Anything like that.
No, it's not changing their curb cuts. It's just that right now, on that westerly side of the street, from time to time, they actually are parking on the grass. And we've had complaints about that in the past, and they're trying to formalize it, to make it neater, and just, it would look better and be more, surface. So no, it doesn't change any of their ingress or egress points.
And stripes?
It will comply with our current requirements.
Okay, we got three. Commissioner Francis.
Is it possible that they could gravel it, recess it a little and gravel it, and put blocks around it rather than paving it?
Well, I think it's if you look at the site plan, it's fairly deeply removed, and that's part of the problem. The reason why they're doing it now is because it's become a bit of a mess when it gets overused, and so they're looking to make it a more formal pavement surface for longer term upkeep and snow removal, and I think they think in the long term it'll be neater than gravel. But ultimately, it does require a review from the Historic District Commission, as I mentioned before, so it'll be subject to whatever standards that they may wish to impose.
Paving's certainly going to increase the runoff rather than gravel.
Well, we have the condition of approval in terms of drainage and engineering.
Yeah.
Right. So they won't be permitted to increase any runoff as a result of the improvement. Commissioner Coleman?
You just answered my question.
Commissioner Corcoran?
I was looking at tree removal. I see there's one tree being removed and the other inspected.
Anyone else? Okay. All in favor? Let's see, so we have a motion with conditions.
Be any specific conditions that might come out of the engineering review, if any, and the requirement for the double line striping as our regulations require.
Very good, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Item carries unanimously with conditions as stated. Next is our public hearing. We have two items. For those members of the public, we'll take a 3-minute break here, 3 to 5 minute break. We'll reconfigure the mics and then we'll get started.
Pretty good.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Call the meeting back to order. For members of the public, the way we run these meetings is applicant gets to make their proposal, call any witnesses, experts, etc. Then we'll open that item up for public comment. You can speak for as long as you like. There are no time limits. Just ask that you keep your comments germane to the matter. Just state your name and address for the record when you come up. Everybody will have a chance to speak. When the public's done, applicant gets a rebuttal. You get the last word, and at the conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, the public hearing is closed, and then we'll move on to the next item. So the first item is zoning and subdivision regulation amendments, application of the Fairfield Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to amend Section 25 and 28 of the zoning regulations and Section 3.10 of the subdivision regulations.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Graceffa, 165 York Road. I am the former chair of the Fairfield Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan Advisory Committee. We were tasked by the Board of Selectmen 2.5 years ago to develop a Fairfield Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, and that plan was endorsed by the Board of Selectmen of June of last year. The plan was developed in conjunction with the Greater Bridgeport Regional Council, town engineering, health, education, police, and planning staff, as well as other outside groups. The plan consists of 6 major sections, being education, enforcement, infrastructure, institutional recommendations, planning recommendations, and then also a complete streets recommendation. The planning recommendations in the plan are what brings me before you tonight. These zoning amendments were developed in coordination with Jeff Stedman, our consultant, as well as the planning staff. The 3 recommendations in general are as follows. The necessity for new developments or modifications to include a bicycle and pedestrian plan with their application, a upgrade to the bicycle rack design standard, and a upgrade to the sidewalk regulation to change it in regards to the width and ADA compliance in town. The 3 brief recommendations are ADA compliance. New sidewalks will need to either be 5 feet wide with a 2-foot snow shelf or 6 feet wide up against a curb, and 6 to 10 feet wide per the Commission's discretion in downtown or high pedestrian environment areas. And within that regulation, there is discretion for planning or geographical constraints that may present an applicant. We feel that these are good, prudent amendments to the zoning code, and they are supported by recommendations from the CDC Safe Routes to Schools program. They also support the goals of the Plan of Conservation and Development. 2 brief goals, reading from the plan, sections from there. 1 is to encourage the development of better and safer pedestrian and bicycle access and passage throughout town. And another one is to eliminate barriers to pedestrian traffic between commercial properties and encourage better pedestrian linkages between such properties to reduce excessive vehicle movements. We feel that these support and build upon current zoning requirements, and I will turn it over to my colleague Jack Franzen to continue.
Good evening, I'm Jack Franzen, also here to speak about the new regs. And I'm going to talk a little bit more from the applicant's point of view, because in my business as an architect, that's what I run into. The new regs that we are proposing are just building upon what the TP&Z already requires. In design districts, applicants are already required to demonstrate that they meet minimum and maximum standards for bulk, coverage, parking, loading, landscaping, drainage, lighting, etc., as well as parking for bikes, and to do so in a comprehensive and integrated manner. So this just adds more detail. The proposed regs also add specifics related to flow, disposition, signage, and further amplify and clarify the requirements. The specific requirement for bike racks gives directions so that new racks will function well and will not interfere with pedestrian traffic. The requirements for sidewalks also give more dimensional and qualitative specificity and takes into account the need in our region for the realities of snow removal. While doing so, the language gives the Commission discretion where traffic, volume, obstructions, or topography make strict adherence impractical. In summary, I feel that the new regs add detail and specifics, and it should make it easier for applicants to comply with the intent of the zoning regs and with the POCD. Architects, engineers, surveyors, and landscape architects are already preparing very detailed site plans for applications and already taking into account pedestrian vehicular flow and storage, and these regs will just help them do it and eliminate potential traffic conflicts, etc. The proposed regs do give you discretion, which Andy already explained. In a town, a typical New England town like Fairfield, a simple textbook approach doesn't work. As you all know, to properly implement a plan, you need people with intimate knowledge of the idiosyncrasies of our town with the crazy, five-way intersections, hairpin turns, very narrow underpasses under the railroad, and other bridges and obstructions having to do with I-95 and the Merritt Parkway. And we feel that the recent vote of the Board of Selectmen last week to create a standing permanent bike and pedestrian commission, that we will be a resource for you if you don't want to become policy wonks on bikes and sidewalks. We're there to help you and to advise you. So, because it will require discretion, you cannot just look at every application and every piece of property the same way. We also did, I don't know if you want me to read these, but we did get some letters, in favor of the regs. And do you want me to read them or just kind of outline them?
Have those been submitted for the record? Do we have those
I'm not
there?
sure, but they were addressed to TP&Z. There was one from Bill Hurley.
Yeah.
I think you did receive, hopefully, by email.
Yeah. Very good. So why don't you can just
Yeah.
summarize them.
Bill
if you like.
Hurley, basically, he sat on a lot of our meetings. He was extremely helpful in crafting the regs and helping us with other things that we've been working on. And he saw no problems with the regs and supported the amendments. The next letter we got was from Peter Tuckle, who I believe is a professor at Hunter College in sociology, and he's extolling the health benefits and psychological benefits, but also the economic benefits of the improvements in bike and pedestrian infrastructure. And finally, no surprise, Richard Jacobs, again, extolling the health and safety, primarily safety benefits of the regs.
Our illustrious,
Yeah, we got that one.
our illustrious
definitely-
former
I'd be
commissioner.
surprised to hear that.
I'm surprised he's not here tonight.
I know.
Yes, exactly. This has been he's been beating the drum for many years.
Yeah.
Many years.
I've been listening to him on those things. Just to
It's all good.
underscore, I'm probably preaching to the choir, I think it's important for TP&Z to take into account the changes in the community now that my office is on the Post Road. It's really changing. It's amazing. I've been there 4 years. Not only downtown, but a lot downtown. The TPC has created a mecca for dining and recreation and entertainment, and it seems like there are always more people down on the Post Road, on the sidewalks, and the vitality feeds on itself, and that's great. In addition to the Post Road, the Fairfield area is completely different, and there's a lot of traffic in there now. The History Center's relocated. It's a much more elaborate facility. Black Rock Turnpike's still changing. And Greenfield Hill, as you heard tonight, as you know, I'm involved in that. I think that area's improved, and there's a farmer's market there. So we think that the new regs we're proposing are in recognition of these facts, and it's a lot of good changes, but they need to be managed. And we believe the changes clarify the existing regs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I truly mean that. This is one piece of larger effort in our effort to study and revise the Plan of Conservation and Development, our master plan, and this is a critical component, and it's really, really great to see. Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Comments? No? Thank you. Any member of the public wish to be heard on this item?
Hello, Elizabeth Gardner, 882 Reef Road, Fairfield. I got on the committee through the senior center. I'm the old lady representative. And in my 2.5 years on this committee, I have become more of a pedestrian and more of a bicycle rider. I'm now using my bicycle to go places to do things, which is desirable. I've also become much more aware of things like sidewalks and snow shelf. It took me a long time to know what that is. You know what it is? It's the green sward, you know, the strip. I didn't know that until recently, actually. I'm aware of lacks in these things, and I think that anything that the town can do to make this a more bicycle and pedestrian friendly place is, for all the obvious reasons, a very good thing. We've worked hard for these 2.5 years. A lot of thought and work and consultation from people like Bill Hurley has gone into the making of these, and we hope you will support them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Kristen McCarthy-Vahey, and I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen and have been serving with all of these members of the Advisory Committee for quite some time to come up with not only these amendments, but also, as you alluded to, a plan and a path for us to go forward as a town. I'd also just like to acknowledge our current chair, Alyssa Israel, who has done a tremendous job as well and has really done a lot of the heavy lifting with this. I strongly urge you to adopt these amendments to the zoning regulations. Oftentimes, people consider this kind of a special interest group, so to speak, especially because we say bicycle and pedestrian. We had some conversation in our committee about changing it to pedestrian and bicycle. And that's because all of us end up as pedestrians at some point. Even if we're driving to a location, we end up in a parking lot, and we then have to get out of our vehicle and walk. And that's one of the gifts, I think, of these regulation changes, which causes you to have another way to look at applications and applicants to really address what it means once a person gets out of their vehicle in a parking lot. And the other piece I'd just like to emphasize is what Mr. Franzen said, is the discretion with the sidewalks. As a selectman, I've certainly seen on many different levels, whether it be from grant applications to issues that come before our board, the role of sidewalks in our community. And it is absolutely true that we have more people walking not only downtown, but in other areas of the town. I think these regulations go a long way to improving our infrastructure, making our infrastructure more accessible, not just for students and seniors, but everyone in between, but also that it gives you the discretion as commissioners to look at the applications and to deem what is best and workable in that environment. So I hope that you will approve these amendments and continue to support the town's efforts to move forward in creating a more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly environment for all members of our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wish to be heard on this item? Okay. Turn it back over to the applicant for any rebuttal. If let's.
I don't have any rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
I would generally.
Rebut that.
Yeah. No, understandable. Mr. Corcoran, if it's a question for the applicant, that's great. If it's a discussion, we should take that up in our executive session when we consider the item. I mean, if you'd like to just make a general comment, feel free. But
Well, I have a question on whether there's preference in the regulations given to sidewalks that have a snow strip versus those that don't.
that's great. Terrific question. Thank you.
Actually, to answer that, and I have to actually go back and refresh memory. No, I would read it unless Jim would disagree with me, the planning staff would disagree with me. That it is 5 feet in width, set back by at least 2 feet from the curb, or 6 feet if at the curb face.
Well, my comment is that I think having the setback is preferable. And so if there's space for it, then I believe that that should be the first choice.
Okay. Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, I guess I have a question, I have a couple comments, not discussion. First of all, I'd also like to commend the applicant and say that this was really done correctly. I know that you've been working on this for a while, and the right way to do this was for your standing committee or whatever now to present this to us. And I'd also say the materials presented were excellent. It wasn't just text. There was visuals, there was a lot of supporting information, the entire bicycle and pedestrian and bicycle master plan. So again, we appreciate all that. This was really, truly done correctly. I just want to say that. I just want to understand how we apply this, because I've been like the sidewalk, a major advocate of sidewalks within the confines of our current regulations. And what we have now is, you know, on subdivisions, we require them in certain zones, and nobody wants to do them, or they always try to get out to waive it. And we almost never waive them, because it takes a 3/4 vote of our commission to waive that requirement. We usually don't. So my comment is, I like that you put in some discretion there to adjust the requirements based on topography, whatever. So a lot of times people say we just can't do it. Maybe they can't do 6 feet or whatever is required, but you know, we can adjust. I think that's important that we have some discretion. My question is, how do you see this working? Because I was like Mr. Corcoran said, 5 feet with the snow shelf or 6 without it. Either, you know, put yourself in, an applicant comes forward, either one is, if it complies, it's really their choice based on the topography which they want to do. That's what you.
I think it should be based on the situation, whether it's a really intense area where you don't think that the greenery is going to survive the traffic versus an area like a residential area where it probably would be okay. Like on the post road, there's the brick and then they have cutouts for the trees. But you know, if it was grass, it would just get trampled all the time. So I think it really should be case by case on that. That's just my opinion.
And do you see our commission as having the discretion in making those calls with the applicant in terms of a preference?
Yeah, I believe so.
I believe so. I mean, there isn't, we give broad discretion for the commission on those requirements set above, the 5+2 or the 6. So I would imagine that discretion would carry over to which standard, that you would, that an applicant would have to meet.
Because, this is great, but the words are words, and people like to be held to that. And then this is one other thing, I don't know that I really want to bring this up. I may not, I like the way you've drawn this, but one thing that I guess I wish we would have changed over the thing is, there's some language in there that it's always been interpreted by engineering department, our commission, that we require sidewalks in the A, B, and C zone. Yet the language still remains, sidewalks shall be installed along all new streets. And some people want to argue, well, if it's not a new street, we don't need a sidewalk. But basically, if somebody's putting in a new subdivision or new residential dwelling units, we require them to put sidewalks in front, regardless if there's any sidewalks on the street, just because our policy's always been, if you don't start it then, if we waive it then, it'll never get done. I kind of wish we could have stricken the new out of that regulation, but...
Spruce Street is a good example in Southport. Spruce Street doesn't have sidewalk, they stop and they, don't continue.
But
So-
still, even if they stop, it's better than no sidewalk.
Absolutely.
I don't know, I wish I would...
Make an amendment to that?
One is, this wouldn't supersede anything in our regulation right now. It's an additional review of, so whether or not we're going to, it would not preclude us from requiring sidewalks on a new division of property along an existing road. It would not. The second thing also about the 6 or 5 feet in snow shovel, ultimately that area is going to be maintained by the town, public works department and engineering. So engineering will make a recommendation, and they do now, with the application with sidewalks being proposed, so that the width in which, whether or not there's going to be a snow shelf or not, would also be included in engineering recommendations, because again, the town ultimately will be maintaining that right of way. So I think both those things are happening.
I'd be, just concerned, because again, you say, maybe there might be some instances where we need to, seek an opinion from your committee going forward, but I'm comfortable if engineering's going to make those recommendations on what it should be. That's good. You've established the minimums. and some flexibility and some discretion. So
Right.
I think, those are all
Yeah.
good components.
I want to just go back to something that was said earlier about the committee and the nature of the work that's been done. And I would expect, certainly having just approved that charge at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, that the collaborative work that happens there would continue. And Bill Hurley is regularly around the table, the health department, the police department, so that, again, the resource, and the planning department, again, the resource that would be there for you, not to add more burden to you, but that this is a resource and that these are the people, the right people are around the table. So that's the fact that that was just approved, I think, further supports this and allows that to be a resource for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Alessi.
Thank you for the work. I noticed in the regulation you put 4,000 PSI concrete.
Well, that's current.
That's current regulation.
That's current.
That's current.
Unless
No,
no
it's not
change.
changed.
Okay, I was just saying, in the future, if you guys are continuing to meet at some point and you find something more permeable or better, something other you'd like to use in the future with new compounds
we could recommend
coming out, we recommend it to us.
Most definitely. And I know we're beating it like a drum, but if in the planning sessions and in the development of the revisions to the POCD, we would encourage interface between you guys and ladies and our volunteer commission. So.
So I don't know if this is a question for staff or the applicant, but as it is written right now, it does appear that in a hypothetical application, the applicant would be permitted to choose between the two. Would the town engineer, would it be appropriate to amend this to provide for, as recommended by the town engineer? Right? So, all right, I guess that's for discussion during the executive session. Okay. So would it be then the intent of your body that the town engineer and/or this commission be vested with the discretion to choose between the 5+2 or 6-foot sidewalks?
Yes.
As opposed to the hypothetical applicant?
Yes. I mean, what we wanted to do, we wanted to continue to evolve what is required to a more accessible standard, but also realizing that there has to be flexibility within there with design parameters for topography and for street width and that type of thing. So there had to be some sort of trade-off between that. And yes, the engineering and the TPC commission would need to do that.
And then with regard to the new streets, was there any discussion around that?
No, we didn't. That did not come up.
Very good. Thank you. Sure.
They're used to this. See? This is the story of our group. We have not discussed that, but one thing we didn't actually talk about was we recently, through the Public Health Department, Sarah Levy brought in a nationally known speaker, Mark Fenton. Some of you may have seen that or heard about it. But one of the things that he alluded to was something that the commissioner spoke of a moment ago, which was whatever we can get in terms of new pieces, wherever we can, to recognize, and that's what this group has been about, is creating a framework that we can continue to connect to. Right. So it would certainly, you can disagree with me, be the wish of this group to have as many pieces of connectivity as possible.
One example would be Round Hill Road, where you have, a sidewalk next to the road, because if you move it away from the road, you're cutting into trees. Mm-hmm. So that would be a situation, I think engineering would look at that and say, look, in this case, the sidewalk should abut the curb. Another situation where there's room and there's not a lot of chance of the vegetation getting trampled, they'd probably prefer the grass strip. So I think you really have to look at each case, and as Andy said, it would be our intent that you would have the power to do that.
Okay. Very good. Mr.
I
Harris?
believe we do, and we have had the power to do that. That word has just caused question at times. Every time we get an application, 100% of the applications in over 10 years that I've been on the commission, in the A and B zone, the town engineer says sidewalks are required, we say sidewalks are required, and sometimes they have to waive them. So it's not a question of whether that word sometimes has caused some confusion. But as the staff says, we've always interpreted as any new dwellings on existing streets as well. So it doesn't change
No.
that. So.
And I was speaking about the difference between the 5+2 versus the 6 foot.
Okay.
And what their intention was.
Yeah.
Because if their intention is that it is the recommendation of engineering and at our discretion as to which should be in the plan, then we can amend these in our executive session when we vote on them to make that clear. If we don't think it is already clear. That was your intention.
That's right, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? Okay. I'd just like to reiterate our thanks for all the hard work and years of effort. Really a great job, so thank you very much. And with that, I'll close the public hearing on that item. Next item on our agenda is 1625 Mill Plain Road, special exception application of the town of Fairfield pertaining to additions and alterations to Riverfield School in an A zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, members of the public. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm an attorney here in Fairfield. I'm proud to be representing the town on this application, seeking approval of renovations and an addition to the Riverfield Elementary School located at 1625 Mill Hill Road. As you know, the use here has been long established at this property and is of course permitted subject to the provisions of section 5.1.4D of the zoning regulations, subject to this special exception review. With me here tonight is Mr. Sal Morbido from the school system, manager of construction, security, and safety. And also with me from the Riverfield School Building Committee is Chris Messina and our chairman, Mr. Tom Quinn. I'd like to say at the outset that the commission over the last year and a half has conducted 34 public sessions, keeping everyone of interest apprised to the plans, taking input from everyone interested in terms of the plans, and we would like to feel and do feel that the application that's before you tonight is the product of a great deal of effort by this building committee with a great deal of public outreach and information disseminated. Now, the specifics of the application: the existing building is 45,049 square feet, and the proposed addition, as shown on these plans that you have in front of you, is 16,390 square feet. I thought a lot about this application yesterday as I sat on the curb of the Post Road, the old Post Road. And I realized that, yes, indeed, Fairfield is a marvelous town, and its strengths and its desirability is reflected in a number of ways, including that Memorial Day parade and the number of children that we see passing through our community at this point in time. And I always have said this before, but one of my idols, John Sullivan, who was the legendary first selectman here, used to always say at applications such as this, that each one of those children will pass through the Fairfield Public School System at each level only once, and they will not receive a free chit or a second chance if we don't maintain, as we always have, the school system and the school facilities. That child, those children at various ages marching in that parade yesterday, will lose that opportunity. And we need that very much now at Riverfield, which has a personal place in my heart because all three of my daughters went there. Right now, the addition that is before you will accommodate an additional 112 students. This is critically essential in order to meet the projected enrollment for the coming years, including 2020 and 2021 school year, where there will be approximately 510 students anticipated. So it's very important in terms of being able to maintain a facility with proper capacity for the students. But there are many, many other also positive benefits that we want to share briefly with you tonight through our presentation, which I'll introduce in a minute. We're going to remove all 5 of the portable classrooms currently utilized on the campus. I felt like calling up former Chairman Gumper on that, because I always remember his concern about those. We're going to have provision being made for major improvements to the school's ventilation and air conditioning systems, and that's important for the staff and students in terms of health. The kitchen, office space, and nurse's office are all going to be given a much-needed renovation. And the renovation of the kitchen is going to include provision for 2 service lines, where there is now only 1, which is going to allow us to more efficiently operate and serve children during the lunching hours, which will benefit all sorts of things programmatically and otherwise. We're going to improve the all-purpose room, and it's going to be expanded to allow seating for the entire student population for purposes of assemblies and the like. We can't do that now. And the design calls for a completely secured vestibule area that will be totally limit and ensure secured access to the building at all times, and the committee's worked and our professionals work very closely with the police department in terms of those matters. Access to the school campus is going to remain unchanged. Mill Hill Road will be maintained as an ingress-only access drive. Access to Lakeside Drive will remain unchanged and function as an exit-only. The separate driveway serving the parent pickup area will remain separate from the driveway and maintain direct access to Lakeside Drive. Momentarily, you'll hear from Mike Galante, Frederick P. Clark, who has submitted a traffic access and impact study, which you have, and be happy to review that and answer any questions that you might have. Also with us tonight, and I'm going to introduce him momentarily, is Peter Manning from Gilbane. That's important here because, as with any school project, construction here, which is going to be phased over 18 months, you're going to need to understand, and we're very proud of the construction phasing plan that we are going to impose here. So there'll be no disruption to students or the curriculum, and we're going to, of course, make proper provision for separation of construction from students and staff in order to ensure safety during all periods of construction. We've also planned to emphasize construction during the periods of the summer months, which will help minimize any kind of disruption. And during periods of construction, whenever, we're going to see to it that all construction vehicles will occur from Lakeside Drive, with construction, as Mr. Manning will review with you, of an access drive at the southwest corner of the property to provide access to the rear of the existing building and the area where the majority of the new construction will be undertaken. There will be no construction access from the Mill Plain Road entrance into the campus due to the configuration of the existing building and the proposed expansion and underground detention system that we have to construct as part of this. We're also going to take provision, as you will probably hear again, to restrict the arrival of construction workers on the site at all times to 7 a.m., and their workday will end at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday. The reason for that is we don't want construction workers to in any way overlap with periods of school arrival and departures. And similarly, construction materials and the like will be restricted to between 9:15 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. We will manage deliveries, so again, there won't be any conflict with school commencement or dismissal. This application has been reviewed by the Inland Wetlands and Conservation Department staff. We have received a certificate of wetlands conformance. They took a careful look at all aspects of this, including, of course, site drainage and engineering, which is going to be enhanced. You also, I believe, have in your package an email to Mr. Wendt from Laura Pooley, dated Friday, May 23rd. And as she indicates, as part of the IWPA process, I may have had the opportunity to review the storm water drainage analysis report dated December 2013. The report indicates that the stormwater drainage system as designed will provide stormwater attenuation for the 2 through 100-year storm event. In addition, the report indicates that the Conservation Department requirements for stormwater attenuation has been achieved, that being 10-year post-development flow rate reduced to 2 years pre-development flow rate. So the drainage plan as designed is therefore acceptable to this department. And we obviously are pleased with that and worked very hard to ensure that. Our presentation, which I will commence at this point in time, I'm going to call on George Kattinger momentarily from Kenneth Borson Architects. George is going to walk you through the existing conditions, the proposed site design and engineering, and of course the proposed architectural plans. Once George has finished that overview, again, Peter Manning, the Senior Project Executive of Gilbane, will review with you in somewhat greater detail the construction management and phasing plan that we propose. And then I'll ask Mr. Galante from Frederick B. Clark and Associates to review with you his traffic analysis. And of course, we'll be available for any questions that any of you may have at the conclusion of our presentation. George. While George is coming up to make things easier for the commission, he's going to present from a series of boards, but we want you to have your own set, both for purposes of easy observation tonight, and also for your package when you return home this evening.
Thank you.
George, you can start if you like. I'm not throwing you off, but I'll take them back up the other way.
Good evening, George Gattinger, Kenneth Borson Architects. I'm going to start by just giving you an overview of the site plan. We've prepared a colored site plan that basically highlights the new construction and differentiates from the existing construction. The board basically shows you the existing structure as the light gray hatched area and our addition in the back and on the side.
Point of order, is it possible to write this to the audience to see what he's showing?
So,
Okay, I'm almost done. It's helpful, I mean, I'm happy to give you.
that would be helpful. Yes, thank you. You can, if you have extra copies, you can leave them on the table. That would be helpful. We do have limitations. Apologize. We do have limitations on the presentation. That's why we have the camera set up the way that we do. You're welcome to move about the room to try to get a better view. If you'd like to set up a chair on this side of the room so that you're viewing this from that side, more than happy to accommodate that, and if anyone else needs to do so, please feel free. This is an issue that we have tried to deal with the cameras and such and the setup of the room, but we haven't found a solution that works for everybody just yet. So you have my apologies. We can take a moment if anybody else wants to move. Maybe we could get her a hand with that. Okay. Great, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Fallon, for giving the extra copies there. I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you. Please continue.
So the colored site plan that you're looking at is basically focusing on the area where the improvements are going to be made. The entire property is about 28 acres. It's very substantial, but the actual area where the school is constricted by the Mill Plain River. There's a fence that separates substantial wetland areas from the play fields. The two existing play fields are here. There's an existing playground that's also shown in the brown. The addition, as I stated, is the dark cross-hatched areas. The dark asphalt pavement areas are areas that we're going to be modifying as part of our site work. Mr. Fallon quoted to you the square foot areas, and I'd just like to show you a landscaping plan.
Question on that before you take it down?
Sure.
Is there any reason why in the upper right-hand corner it's sort of shaded gray, grayish? Yeah, a little bit further up, and just across the...
In the landscape.
Yeah, in the landscaping edge.
Here.
Yep, starts there, right there. Why is
I'm going to show that to you right now.
Okay, thank you.
How did I know? Nice feather. The landscaping, the shaded area that you were seeing represented plant beds to stabilize an embankment. So the substantial areas that we're landscaping are providing existing vegetation along the northern property line. So the other areas that are being restored, you're seeing a dark post-shade area in the back along the existing fields. These are the laydown areas where the construction is going to be performed. When we're all said and done and we walk away, the fields will be fully restored. We had a meeting with Mr. Placco, the tree warden. He reviewed our landscaping plan. His primary concern was that we were cutting down 9 trees to accommodate our construction in the back. We've agreed to give them 9 new shade trees to replace the ones that we're losing, and we will field locate them during the construction process. An enlarged version of the floor plan. You can see an aerial photo that shows the footprint of the building with our additions on it. But the 16,000 square foot addition is shown primarily in the light blue area. It comprises an extension onto the gym, 7 new classrooms, utility space on the north side of the building for services for the kitchen as well as the building, and we're enclosing a new vestibule underneath the existing canopy. That's going to be our point of entry of security. You get buzzed into the vestibule, there's going to be a new door that gets you from the vestibule directly into the office for screening purposes. So,
Are there requirements now for those types of security measures?
It's become a big focal point in all school construction, yes.
Right.
So we're securing the area with ballistic glazing. So I've been asked not to get into too many specifics in a public venue.
Really?
But
so there are some security features of the construction that are not for public consumption?
No, they're going to be bid. I mean, basically, we're making our vestibule a ballistically enclosed structure.
I see.
So that you have to get buzzed into the vestibule. The glass between the vestibule and the office is ballistically glazed. The glass doors from the vestibule into the school are glazed. And you can't get into the building unless someone from the office sees you and allows you entry.
Is that through all times during the day, or only when, only not during those times when the students are sort of coming in?
It's primarily during school operating hours. If you have events in the evening, I can imagine the doors are going to be open, so public can ingress and egress out of the building.
Well, when the students are coming in, the doors are going to be open.
Yes.
Clearly,
yes.
You're not going to buzz each student
yes.
individually.
Entrance by students from either a walking capability or from buses are controlled by staff at the entries. The principal entries are here and down here off the pod area. The green areas.
Sorry, can you?
What would you like?
Use your microphone, please. Mr. Francis? Yep. Commissioner Leslie's next.
Are you taking all the doors out along the front of the building? Each classroom there has a door?
No. All the existing classroom doors currently are hollow metal. There's no glass in them. Right. And the hardware has previously been removed to make entrance more problematic. The doors have to swing out as emergency egress and will continue to do so. But if you look at all the existing doors, there's no hardware, and they've been replaced, I believe, within the last 10 years, 5 years, according to Mr. Morabito.
Right. So those exterior doors don't allow for someone to come in, and there's no handle for them to turn to enter, but they are emergency exits.
Exits only.
Right. Okay. Commissioner Alessi?
You said you alluded to that the front vestibule is bulletproof?
Yes, sir.
I've had discussions with the police department on this, and it's their recommendation that the whole first floor of the glass be bulletproof.
All the glazing in the school was replaced within the last 5 years. So 5 years ago, an extensive window renovation project was done where all the glass was removed. There was no mandate from anyone at this point in time for us to replace the existing.
Mandate, no, but a recommendation from the police department, I know that. And I know there's a couple of companies out there that put a protective film that they recommend on these windows. So, I mean, to go through all this, you know, I would definitely like to hear from the police department too about this.
Well, that may be
The representative
appropriate
police department to
at
follow
some
up on this as
point.
well too. I mean, especially after Newtown, to go through something like this and spend the money, if we're talking about a bulletproof film on the glass, let's look into it now.
Hold on.
For the record, and you do what you want.
John Fallon.
The product that is before you tonight was the product of about 4 or more, Mr. Quinn? Come up and introduce yourself for the record. The police department has been hands-on on this since day one in terms of coming up with a security plan that they think is state-of-the-art post-Newtown. And I don't know, Tom, if you want to speak to that.
State your name and...
I'm Tom Quinn. I live on Myro Street in Fairfield and chair of the Riverfield Building Committee. I met with the police department, okay, at 4 separate times. We have toured the school. They have reviewed the plans from the architect, including all the bulletproof glass. This is a state-of-the-art within the town of Fairfield, okay? And their judgment provides adequate security for the kids in the school to meet the guidelines that they have in force for this town.
Okay, we're meeting the guidelines according to you. I haven't heard from the police department.
No.
But if we can exceed the guidelines based on their recommendations, why not?
Okay, they have not offered anything beyond what we have put together with them,
Okay.
okay?
That's fair enough. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, thank you for that input.
And I think,
I appreciate that.
Without,
You
I'm not trying to be presumptuous,
use
but
your
obviously,
microphone.
we'd like to, if possible, conclude the hearing tonight, but I don't think that prevents you, under the laws of the state of Connecticut, as it relates to planning and zoning matters, from soliciting confirmatory input from your police department.
No,
If the hearing's
of
closed.
course.
And I'd like you to do that.
Yeah, no,
Because,
absolutely.
because I want you to be as comfortable with this application as we are.
Right. Now,
From all standpoints, but especially from a security standpoint.
Absolutely.
Of course. And we would expect nothing less. I mean, you know,
But I think
clearly.
you can seek that input from your police department through your planning and zoning staff prior to deliberation.
Mhm.
Thank you. Is there any sort of representation of what the vestibules would look like at the end of construction?
Yes, we have a rendering and an elevation to show you.
Okay, excellent. And in the interior as well?
I don't think we did an interior rendering, but there's square footage. It's going to be a waiting area, seating area where people can wait to either be bussed in or pick up their children. So it's a big enough area where it's going to serve as a waiting room. As opposed to normally walking into an admin office, I got to sit, I'm here to pick up my son. You no longer wait in the office, you wait in a separate secure area.
Right. Has that been designed?
Yes, we're fully mobilized to go out to bid.
Okay.
It's been approved by the building committee, it's been approved by, the police department has looked at it. I don't have a letter from them that says this is the maximum that you can do, but it's certainly the effort that we've put in place.
I would like to see what the design of those vestibules will look like.
Okay.
So if that can be submitted, I'd appreciate that.
Any other?
Please, continue.
The green areas on the footprint are areas of the existing building that are being renovated. So the office area and the nursing suite is being expanded where there's currently one existing classroom. This is an existing kindergarten that's being removed to provide us access to the addition. The gym is being enlarged to accommodate entire school assemblies. And as John mentioned, we're taking out the stage in the existing APR to create more seating. And one of the most glaring problematic plans that we've had is the OT-PT area is currently within what they call the pod in an exposed open area, so it's being removed. And we're gonna be,
OT-PT?
occupational therapy.
I just wanted to make it clear for the record.
Okay. And it's being replaced in an enclosed space down near the office area, and this will become a resource room. All the shaded area is existing space that's being renovated and going to be receiving sprinklers, new ceilings, all new lights, energy efficient LED lights. Fire alarm upgrades are going to be totally upgraded. And it's really important to understand the ventilation aspect of this. Currently, the gym is air conditioned. I believe the pod is air conditioned. And there's an air conditioning system in the media center and a small unit that serves the office area. None of the existing classrooms have fresh air makeup air. You open a window, that's it.
They have no ventilation system other than windows?
No. There's an exhaust fan in the ceiling of each room. This existing building dates back to 1958. They weren't believers in air conditioning. And we've looked at many, many alternatives to doing it, but it was a strong mandate from the Board of Ed and our building committee that we provide ventilation and air conditioning.
So the whole building now will be air conditioned?
Yes, sir. And again, the square footages are here. The existing building is 45,000 feet. All the additions are going to be approximately 16,390.
Commissioner Francis?
You said you're taking out the stage in, what do you call it, the all-purpose
APR.
room?
Yes.
Where is it going?
Going at the end of the gym.
Oh, okay.
So part of the gym addition on this end, we're making the gym longer, and we're putting in a new performance platform. They have a very nice music program at the school, and they wanted a performance platform.
That's the same gym they have. Does this school just have one gym, the all-purpose room, and one gym?
Yes, it has an all-purpose room and a gym. Okay. The all-purpose room in 1958 was the space. They put the gym addition on in 1971 along with the pod.
Yeah, okay.
We've also prepared for you a roof plan. We understand this is of concern to the commission. The shaded areas are the areas of our new roof. How are we air conditioning this building? Basically, we're putting units on the roof. There's one large unit that's going to sit on the addition here that'll provide fresh air and air conditioning to the gym, as well as the APR, and as well as the kitchen. All the other systems are smaller units, and you'll see them on our elevations as well. So there's approximately 5 or 6 units that are going to be put on the roof.
Commissioner Alessi?
I have a question. Have you looked at all, while you're doing this whole construction, into solar power?
We were asked to put structure in our addition to accommodate future photovoltaic panels. It's a flat roof. It would seem an ideal target for that opportunity.
Right.
But we are not planning on building them into the system at this point in time.
Why?
Cost. It's a good payback on it.
Right.
But we've reinforced the structure and are providing the supports so that if one of these future programs become available, we can install the panels in the future.
I mean, just to get maybe a little bit off topic, but doesn't the state offer any type of funding for a school to go solar powered now? And after the budget cuts everybody went through and aggravation, it might be a good idea for this school to be state of the art to start with the solar power?
Well, maybe somebody can speak to
That was
that.
investigated by the board, and obviously if those funds were readily available, I think that would have been considered, but at this point in time, they're not, certainly not to defray the significant cost that would be associated with this. This entire program has moved its way, through the building committee, the Board of Ed, the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, so that all these things I think have been looked at. But the bottom line is, in terms of trying to balance the needs of the children and the time efficiency of this process and budgetary considerations, this is what we have now. But there's no free money out there.
I also don't want to see, Mr. Fallon, building a school on a rush for a time constraint.
No.
So we want to do it right the first time.
This is right. This plan is right. It's right for the kids, it's right for the taxpayers, it's right for everybody. And there is a rush to build this school, all due respect. If you have parents, parents in that school right now with kids in the school or kids in the pipeline, there is a rush. But nobody's cut any corners here. The issue of solar energy is an attractive one. There's no doubt about it. And as Mr. Kattinger says, we've built into the design at this time the facility so that if funds either locally or on the state level avail themselves at some point, we could do that. But we just can't do it now.
I'd just like to add, we spent 2 years evolving the entire plan, first cost, payback costs, to get the maximum building effort for the maximum dollars that we had to spend. It wasn't just something that was cavalierly said, oh, we're not going to do it. So we're trying to accommodate a future application that if it becomes viable, that we can put the...
Now, if it does become viable in the future, do you have to move the air conditioning units?
No, sir.
You could, they're fine.
Right.
Mr. Borbito would also like to add a comment on solar consideration.
Just introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Sal Morbito. I'm Manager of Construction Security and Safety for the school district. Solar panels are typically, for the size project that you're talking about, come through a power purchase agreement. Essentially, it's a leasing project. It's not necessarily in the purview of the building committee to do that. So the structure addition is an enhancement that will be useful when we go to look at a power purchase agreement for this building. We're actually looking at it for, you want to start with the biggest structures first. So this isn't the first candidate for a solar panel. There are other opportunities that we're investigating right now. Some might come forward soon as in year and a half. But it's not, it is something that we do actively look into in cooperation with the town. Mr. Bowman in the Public Works Department is awesome with ZREX and all the grants that are available for that, so we do work cooperatively with them.
Thanks. Very helpful information. Thank you. Commissioner Francis? Sorry for interrupting you. Another question.
What, are there any provisions for the odors coming out of the kitchen for the neighbors on Hunter Road?
The kitchen is in the same location it's always been in. There's a new hood being installed, so it'll have the appropriate filters, and the exhaust is going to be where it's always been. We're not making the kitchen bigger. We're not adding cooking equipment. We're just reorganizing the locations of the equipment.
And then how about the noise levels of all this air conditioning on the
We
roof?
have an acoustic study that's been performed on this. The largest unit that we have, which is located right here, actually we're providing an acoustic barrier that separates and faces off to the north property line. You'll see it on the elevations when I get there. So it's going to deflect any noise upwards as opposed to laterally so that we don't exceed the decibel levels at the property line. The other units are relatively small and very relatively quiet.
Because the houses are very near.
Yes.
Yeah, I see that on the elevation. I don't recall seeing a report in the packet. Did you submit a report on sound? I don't recall that.
We retain an acoustic consultant who evaluates, as part of our services, we retain an acoustic consultant that we're mandated to do by the state of Connecticut Department of Education to evaluate the noise levels within the classrooms as well as the noise that's produced by the rooftop units. We have a report, yeah, we can file it if you like.
That would be helpful. Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, I think the neighbors are concerned about the increase in size, and additional units, and I'm sure that that's something that they would find helpful. Commissioner, thank you.
What was the first item about the interior design?
On the vestibules, yeah, I want to make sure that we're accommodating all of the safety concerns, and at the same time creating livable and attractive and friendly spaces. So, Commissioner Barrett?
Are you going to present, what is the timeline for construction, I mean, regardless of approval date, like how long is it going to take, and is there a phase? Is it going to it? Okay, never mind. And then my next question is, I don't know if you know, but what is just in terms of size, what is the current enrollment of Riverfield School? Somebody must know that.
It's in his letter.
It's not a letter. It's 394 students. 394. So it really is an additional 112 students, not just relocating 112 students from portable units then? So I'm sorry, this is so there's actually a projection that you'll have 112 more students?
The projection for 2020, 2021 is 512 students, whereas now there's 390.
And there's been a projection done across the district and other, that seems like a large increase. I wasn't aware of what the current enrollment was, and it seemed like we're going to get rid of some, portables and create a full 510, but the enrollment's only 399 today.
394. And it'll be projected 2020, 512. That's what it was, the comment that I made partially in fun, but maybe it's great. These children are in the system now, they can be counted, and it's a situation that we've dealt with before, at other schools, elementary schools, now we're dealing with Riverfield.
Right, and again, I understand the need to renovate and update schools and how long it takes a school to wait their turn to get in line for this. Seeing all the, we used to meet at Riverfield until McKinley was renovated, and that was over 10 years ago, and it doesn't happen that quickly, as you all know from surveying. But I was just concerned about what the actual enrollment was projected to be in terms of an increase.
Which, if you're interested, is on the Board of Education website.
Okay.
Which has hundreds and hundreds of pages of all this that bears out preschool and the numbers. It's a great thing because it means we have a great town, a great school system, and people who are looking to locate families here are attracted. The price you pay for that, the taxpayer price, is those kind of numbers that we're focusing on now. And we have to keep the schools ready to handle those children. And these children, these projected children, they're here. They're just, these are fairly accurate.
They're born already.
Yeah.
And to further clarify the point, the school currently has 4 classrooms per grade, from kindergarten through 5th. When we're all said and done, we're still going to have the same number of general classrooms. So if the population increases, those classrooms are designed to support the enrollment of the student body. So we're not really making the building bigger. It's got the same 4 grades for K through 5 after we're done that it currently has. The addition is there to get rid of the modulars and to provide additional support space.
Just to be clear on something you just said, though, I mean, we're not just building bigger classrooms.
They're not bigger.
They're not bigger. We're not talking about increasing class sizes.
No, sir.
No. You mean the number of grades will remain the same?
The number of grades will remain the same. The additional students will be accommodated within the spaces that are there.
All right. So you're talking bigger classes.
You're talking bigger class size.
Yes.
Class size.
Class size, not classroom.
Right, class size is
Class
going to
size.
increase. Because they're keeping the same number of classrooms.
Yeah,
Can I answer this conversation?
Yeah, you should probably someone from school, because my experience is that the number of sections, even within a grade, differ year to year based upon enrollments. You can't just say you're always going to have 4.
Correct.
It could be 3, it could be 5, so.
I'm Brenda Anziano, the principal of Riverfield Elementary School.
Thank you.
What this renovation is really trying to accommodate for us is we have students right now located in portable classrooms that are not attached to the building, so they are going from portables into the building. So the renovation, the number one priority of this renovation is to attach those classrooms for safety and security reasons, that those children are not passing outside. There's no bathrooms out there. There are kids, kindergarten kids going with a buddy into the building to go to the bathroom. That's what the renovation is really trying to accommodate.
These are obviously tremendous concerns that need to be addressed. There's no doubt.
Correct.
Okay. I guess I heard is that we're growing the space in the main building to eliminate the portables, but those kids are not getting additional classrooms. We're making larger classrooms?
No, we're adding 6 classrooms to the school structure.
Okay.
So right now, I have 5 classrooms
Right.
that are disconnected from the building.
Those are now going to be moved into the
Those are
building?
going to be connected with the renovation
Right.
to the main building.
That's what I thought.
So you're gaining one classroom with the entire renovation, plus the gym space and the APR space. However, by 2020-21, you're going to have 112 additional kids in the school. Therefore, your class sizes would have to increase. You have more kids in the school for the same number
No,
of
because
classrooms.
we're going to have more classrooms in the school.
Only one more
One
classroom?
more classroom.
You're taking away you're taking away 5 portables and 6 classrooms, right?
Correct. But
So you're-
right now, we have a music room that doesn't have a space. We have a science lab that's being added because of ed specs. And we're adding an additional 3 classrooms.
Okay, let me ask you this.
And special education rooms.
Okay, you're the principal of the school.
Right.
2020, you said? Yep. Can you handle the amount of kids in 2020 with what
Absolutely.
we're building now?
With the 6 additional classrooms, we can handle 504 students, correct?
This is also true, and I could be wrong about this, but currently, this school year, the 5 portables are not all being used for the regular student population.
Correct. No,
Do
they're
they
not.
want to make that clear?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
They're
Yes,
they're being used, right now, the 5 portables that are at Riverfield, one is a music classroom, which is general music, every student goes there.
Which we're adding to the new building.
We're going to have a music classroom
Okay.
attached to the building, correct. Then we have band and orchestra, students going back and forth, added to the building. And then we have 3 classrooms of special education students that are currently inside of Riverfield, we have no space for.
Okay.
And that, the reason I wanted to say that.
So with this
No,
renovation, we're not only...
This is important.
Thank you.
Right, with-
Commissioner Calabrese's comment was
Yeah.
correctly, that we went
Correct.
over, that really we are adding 7 classrooms.
Right.
It's not like we're using those 5 portables as regular classrooms.
Good enough.
So
Right.
where the excess students will go in 2020 is those additional 7
Correct.
classrooms.
So in the renovation, all the special education students that are now being accommodated in the portables will have specific space within the building for those teachers to be operating that will not be in classroom space, which is right now where they are.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you.
So what is the average class size in the building now, regular class?
Right now, the average class size is around 20.
And after the renovation with the projections in 2021, what do you anticipate the
We're
average
hoping
class size?
for 2022
Okay.
students.
If I could just,
All right, I think that's the nub of it,
Yeah.
right?
I-
The crux of it. Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, if I just, I mean, I understand the math of this, and 504 is a clear number, that's 21 students, 6 grades, 4 sections. So that's how you get to 504, that's like the prototype school that we build. And we're just concerned that we're gonna have, the math wasn't working, and it was like, the classrooms weren't gonna support it, so now we.
The key is what the portables are used for now.
Right.
That's what the key
Exactly.
is.
All in-
That's what the key is.
That's what we didn't understand.
Yep.
Thank you for
And the
clarifying.
OTPT space that we were talking about, the occupational physical therapy space right now is in a really no confidentiality for students that receive those services, and they will have a dedicated space in the addition, which is one of the most important things for me right now.
Very good.
And attaching everything to the building, because it's a security nightmare for me as the principal.
I agree.
Okay?
Very good. Thank you very much. Please continue.
Apologies. These are renderings of the building. Essentially, your question as to where the new vestibule is. This is an existing overhang that serves as a portico at the main entry to the school. There's an existing brick column on the front. That whole area will be enclosed, and that will become the vestibule. We can give you enlarged plans of that.
Thank you.
That will clarify that. The addition on the field side of the building is basically here. The design of the building is complementary to the existing format of the existing school. It's got large window areas, metal panels above the windows, brick veneers and facades. The gym addition, as you can see, comes from this line back. And again, we're going to try to match the existing brick colors. We don't believe in trying to clash with it. We're trying to blend with it. The elevation boards that you see here now are just flat elevations. And here, I believe, this is the side facing the north property line. And you can see this large gray area here is the acoustic screen that we're putting around that unit to block the sound from hitting the north property line. You can see various smaller units in the elevations on the various other portions of the roof. I also have some courtyard elevations. The school will have a courtyard that you may have noticed on the site plan. So it's going to have, this is the existing building that currently faces towards the fields. This is the addition of our unit. And again, you can see these small rooftop units in various places along the area. I just wanted to show you the general organization, our engineered site plan. Again, as John mentioned, this has been fully vetted by the Inland Wetland Commission. All these dark areas are the infiltration systems that we're adding, tying into the existing system. I don't know what else I can offer at this time.
Continue to press. Should there be further questions?
Sorry, that was loud.
Peter Manning from Bill Bain is here, and he will walk you through our plans for construction, phasing of the construction, and so on.
Thank you. And Mr. Fowler, you can just hand the stack right down there. Right there. Thank you very much. And if need be, we can share one if you need.
I'm going to use both of them to minimize my...
Thanks very much for the opportunity to present the construction phasing plan. My name is Peter Manning. I'm with the firm of Gilbane Building Company out of Glastonbury, Connecticut, and we've done a lot of these renovation projects in occupied schools. So we bring some expertise to the project. I've handed out the phasing plans that I have on the boards, and there is a ton of information on these plans. So at this point, I'm going to give you the highlight bullets, and at your leisure, you can review some of the minute details on there. So phase one, phase one is on this side. As soon as school gets out in June, we anticipate going out with an early site package. And the purpose of this really is for clearing the site of the utilities that are in the footprint. The second thing that we're doing is we're installing the utilities that lie between the pod and the portable classrooms that remain. Because during construction, we're taking down three of the five portables. Two will remain in place because the program couldn't sacrifice all five during construction. So the game plan is get the stuff in the ground between the pod and the portables, restore it so that Brenda and her staff still have access to those portables. We will be demolishing three portables, the two that fall within the footprint of the building, and then one that's marked by an X. It's not within the footprint of the building, but in order to get the new sanitary around the building, that portable has to go. So the two pink, designated by pink, will remain in place. The green outline on that really identifies the scope of work of this early enabling package. And also part of that package will be a limited abatement package, which will abate the exterior skin of the building. There's some transite panels, there's some asbestos in some of the caulking. The intent is to get that abatement done during the summer so that when children are back in school, we don't have to worry about doing that type of abatement work. By the end of the summer, we're hoping that we have formal authority by the state of Connecticut, the school, the state of Connecticut school, SFU is it? OSF, to bid the project. And once we go out to bid with the rest of the project, we're really going to be focusing on creating this entire space back here, which is the area in which the construction will be working from. Parking within the fence line. This area is going to be entirely fenced. Our philosophy with regard to an occupied site is separation and trying to keep the students and the field operations separate, whether it's by chain link fence on the exterior, whether it's hard barriers on the interior of the school. So once the rest of the package goes out to bid, we'll continue basically with the foundations of the new addition, and we'll be installing some of the underground utilities on the north side of the building. The game plan right now is on the north side of the building. Later in the summer, we'll be taking 40 parking spaces in order to create a lay-down area for the north addition, but also for the installation of the drainage structure on the north side of the building. And on a day-to-day basis, the parking that would have occurred in these 40 spaces can be accommodated by the parking lot right adjacent to Milk Lane Road. So at the end of the summer, we're going to be preparing the site for the return of students and staff in late August. This plan, also I wanted to highlight, incorporates the inland wetland comments. There were 3 significant comments. One, limiting fuel storage in the area of the wetlands. Basically, the back side of the school to the west is within the 100-year floodplain. So there were 3 comments: limiting fuel storage, requiring tie-downs in the 100-year flood area, and the third is minimizing stockpiles of soil. So those have been accommodated in the plan that you have in front of you. I'm going to move on to phase 2.
Next question. Matt.
I'm going to pull this back just so
Commissioner
I'm
Calabrese. Quick question.
Sure.
Thank you. You had mentioned the abatement process and all that. With the fact that we just went through the whole PCB issue over at Osborne Hill, are we aware of any issues or pending issues that we might have or run into at Riverfield, or we won't know until we get in there and open things up, basically?
I'll let George expand upon this, but there have been significant amount of hazardous material study done on the building. We know where the hazardous materials are. We have construction plans which identify those, and we have a bid package basically drafted to address all of those. Right now, we're still awaiting EPA approval, which is one of the things that's holding us up from the formal approval to bid the whole project. We anticipate that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Peter summarized it very accurately. The PCBs that we've identified are primarily in caulks around windows and doors. There's one significant issue of PCBs within the felt waterproofing between the brick and the block. An abatement plan has been submitted. We sent it up to Boston on January 14th, and we're still waiting. We're told we're getting closer, but it has been accounted for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So phase 2, if you want to flip your page, and I'll go on to this side. Phase 2 basically is starting in late August, September of 2014. Children are back in school. It again integrates separation of construction and school operations with fencing and hard barriers. We are in a situation, especially in the courtyard, where we need to maintain emergency egress from the classrooms on the rear side of the building. And there will be a chain link fence and basically a tunnel built through the construction to allow safe egress in the event of an emergency. Because this building is currently not sprinkled, the egress in these classrooms has to go direct to the outside. So on the east side of the building, you talked about the doors in the previous discussion. That egress is allowed basically through there, and on the west side, we need to still maintain this emergency path through the courtyard. At the same time, we're building, the addition. They are. They're going into the entire building. That's part of the upgrade into the entire building. The area here where the two portables remain, the space between the pod and this odd-shaped part of the building is what we refer to as the pod, lovingly. And the utilities that fall in between the portables and the pod will be completed, and that will be restored so that the school has access to the portables. The playground will be reopened during the school year. The one thing that I didn't mention on phase 1, during the summers, there will be no public use of the school. Not even the building committee is going to meet there. So we're basically taking over the entire site. But once school starts back up, we're going to restore, obviously the playground for use by the school. Access to the construction will be limited to Lakeside. Lakeside Drive is here. There is going to be a gated area. All construction access will be through that gated access area and confined to the fenced-in area there. We are limiting, and our transportation engineer is going to talk to you a little bit about the traffic study, but we'll be limiting when deliveries will be made to the school and when the tradespeople will be allowed to leave the site. There is going to be significant construction signage, and some of the signage is listed there on the bottom. There will be access to the ball fields. The ball fields are going to be significantly decreased in size, but still available to the recreation department by access on the south side of the building. The focus during the school year, while school is in session, is really going to be on the additions. It's the concrete foundations, the structural steel, the exterior building skin and roof of the additions. And just a couple of security notes during school. All tradesmen will be badged, and Fairfield Police has agreed that they will run background checks on all folks that are going to be working on the site. At this point, we will go to phase 3. Phase 3 really initiates when the addition is completed. What happens is when this is completed, we'll, go ahead.
I have a quick question. You say badge, you can have a security guard there signing in and out of trucks, coming and going?
We have flaggers. We're purchasing flaggers with each of the trades to maintain basically vehicle and pedestrian traffic on the perimeter of the site. We are not signing vehicles in as long as they stay within the fenced-in area. We don't have plans at this point to sign them in.
I'm saying if we get a delivery of pipe, the trucker drive signs checklist saying at what time he was in there and who it was and what company he was coming into the site. And, you know, you have a security guard there who will sign him in and sign him out as he comes in and out, which is very common on a lot of constructions.
Yeah. The issue is that deliveries come fast and furious. And it's something we can certainly talk to the building committee about from the standpoint of a dedicated security guard. Because at this point, we hadn't made provisions for that, but we can certainly explore it.
Well, it could also be put into the contract for the GC when they're doing the job as well, too, if they put in their bid.
Well, it's not a general contractor, there's a construction manager, so it's...
CM.
Yeah,
CM
well, that's us.
Okay.
So, and when we put together the GMP, we can certainly carry that security guard in the value.
This is for during those times when school is in session.
In session.
I mean, you're going to have all your workers, you know, background checks and badges and sure, you know, but it seems that that's kind of a gap in the whole thing. You're going to have trucks coming and going. Nobody's going to be checking them out.
Okay. Any other questions on Phase 2? I'll move to Phase 3. So Phase 3, we just highlighted the addition is done. The owner will take beneficial occupancy of Phase 3. They're going to move students, depending on the timing, and it all depends on the approvals to bid. Depending on the timing, we anticipate that happening before the end of the year, April-May timeframe. Brenda and the school folks are basically going to take the people in these classrooms that face the driveway and swing them into the addition. The good thing about that is those people in those classrooms will move to their permanent home. We won't have to move people twice. So we're going to move them in. That allows us access to those classrooms through the exterior doors in those classrooms.
So you're going to do this in April of the year, so they're going to move there for 2 months, in effect, to those new classrooms,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yep. Access to the portables is still maintained. Work is going to continue on the north addition here. The north addition contains areas of the boiler room and some of the higher mechanical usage areas, so the turnover of that is likely to go out past the turnover of the addition. We'll start some limited restoration of some of the area in the back of the building once the addition is complete. And again, egress still needs to be maintained through the courtyard for the classrooms in the back. In order to support the new work in the east classrooms, additional fencing is going to be installed to create a construction barrier out front. The main office, which is now currently located somewhere around here, is going to be temporarily located to the door closest to the pod. The main entrance will move to the location by the pod. We'll still provide emergency egress through the location where the main entrance was, but that will no longer be the day-to-day entrance for folks coming to the school. Questions about number 3, phase 3? And then, really, the next summer of 2015, is phase 4. Again, we're going to be closing down the site. We're going to take over the entire site. We have a lot of site work within the main driveways, upgrades to all the parking areas along the Mill Plain Road, the front of the school, as well as the drainage structure on the south in the main driveway. The expansion of the gym will be complete, and we will also be working on the gym floor replacement. Sprinkler work in that summer is going to be going on pretty much everywhere in the building. The new lobby will be constructed. And then the possible removal of the last 2 portables will happen next summer.
Why do you say possible?
Depending on the schedule, and the next thing I was just going to say was depending on the approvals and the approval to go to bid, there is a distinct possibility that some of the renovation is going to spill into the fall. Likely we would do the pod, and I say likely because it's a good candidate because we can put a temporary partition right across here and access the pod from the exterior.
So that's the last thing to do.
Say again?
So the pod is the last piece to be done?
Yes. Yeah.
When you think about delays and modifications to the plan, I think moving the kids for the last 2 months of the school year, making that shift to the classrooms in April, is that's a big hardship. That's a big imposition for kids that age to have to move at the end of the year for 2 months. You know, I don't know. I don't pretend to know as much about the phasing and the movement of all of this, all these moving parts. But if that has to be adjusted, I think that should be a primary concern. I mean, I just know I have an 8-year-old. You know, I just think about her in her classroom, and then being told one day that we just need to move to a new room. All their projects that they've been working on all year, that corner that she goes to every morning, that space that the kids have to. I mean, it's all routine, and so
Well, I think that we're not going to do it in one day, so students will know what's happening. And I am staging the whole process with Gilbane, that the students that will move will be our 3rd grade students. And those teachers already know today that they're going to be the ones that are going to have to move. And we want the project done, so we're not going to hold it up.
No, I understand that you want it done. Everybody wants it done. If we could all have it done tomorrow, we would. But there was just a distinct possibility suggested that we wouldn't finish on time. So if there is going to be
if there's a delay, if there's a delay, if there's a delay, exactly.
I'm saying let's think about those kids first, and if there's some way that we can adjust what we need to in order so that they can stay in their classroom through the end of the year, please let's do that.
I work for children first, and that's what I would do. So if we
Thank
have
you.
if we have a delay, then
I didn't
we
think
would
you'd
work on that.
disagree with me.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I don't disagree with you.
And I think, if it makes sense to do it, if we have 2 months or 3 months that would support the move, that's one thing. If it gets down to making that move for 1 month, it's probably not worth it to do it.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, just try to just try to take that into account.
So just a couple of points in summary, and then I'll turn it back to John. We will have full-time supervision on site at all times. If not 1 person, 2 people. The game plan really is to have 2 people on site, but 1 full-time superintendent. Separation of trades from the building is key. Access and deliveries is going to be coordinated to avoid peak traffic times. And the last point is inland wetland and deep requirements, as discussed earlier in the wetlands area, have been addressed in the plan.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you very much, and we'll remain in attendance. Mr. Galante obviously submitted a traffic evaluation and assessment, and he's going to briefly summarize that.
Great.
And answer any questions that you might have about any aspect of that.
Before Mr. Galante, as we're at a natural break here, I need 2 minutes. Okay? So we'll just adjourn the meeting for a short 2-minute break.
While you're breaking, I will be at your places, Mr. Galante.
I have to say, we're almost done. That's easy for me, too.
10 to 10. I'll call the meeting back to order.
Good evening, Mike Galante, Frederick Clark Associates. We are traffic consultants to the school, for this particular school. We did prepare a traffic study. In the interest of time, a late hour, and I know you're just happy to see me, I'll give you
I read the whole
a detailed summary of a traffic report that's dated January of this year. I handed out, or actually John handed out some figures. I apologize, but some of the tables are not there. It's just the figures. Everything I'm presenting tonight on a board is in the report itself, so I'm not giving you something new tonight. Just like Mr. Fallon, my children went to this school too, so we know the school well. We do live in the neighborhood for about 25 years, so we're quite familiar with this. Also, as you may know, we've done probably 200 schools, me personally, over the years, and we do get involved with every aspect of traffic safety, school bus activity, pedestrians, traffic flow. And schools are very different than shopping centers or residential developments, so it's the same type of traffic study, but some of the parameters are very, very different. And sorry to say, we were involved with Sandy Hook as far as security issues for the town of, I was on that committee after that whole tragedy, so we've been involved with some of the other aspects of that from a traffic aspect, not building conditions. We prepared a traffic study, and the graphics I'm showing you, and you have some of them tonight clipped, and then of course in the report itself. Just for reference purposes, figure 1 in the report is just for reference purposes the school itself, the campus, Mill Plain Road, Lakeside Drive. And the red dots on this figure 1 are the intersections we studied, which, and I'm going to flip to the backside because it's a blow-up. We focused on the entrance drive from Mill Plain Road, which is the entrance drive today. It'll be the entrance drive in the future. Yes, we projected our traffic analysis to 2020, school year 2020, so we increased background traffic. We increased the traffic to reflect the 112 additional students, and I'll go through that in a couple of minutes. We focused on the entrance drive into the school. We focused and counted and analyzed the exit drive, if you will, onto Lakeside Drive. There's actually 2 driveways there. One's for a small parking lot, one is for the exit drive for the entire campus, school buses, parents, so on, coming out. And of course the intersection of Lakeside Drive at Mill Plain Road itself, the stop sign controlled intersection. When we do any traffic study, we actually do traffic counts. We have people standing on the side of the road, counting traffic by turn and movement, pedestrians in this case, and number of school buses. This is figure 4, which represents the morning peak hour. We identified the morning peak as 8 to 9 a.m. School starts about 8:55 a.m. So if you look at the traffic volumes in the worksheets in the back, you'll see the peak flow of traffic in this area is 8:45 to 9 o'clock, when everyone comes to drop off children just before the bell rings. So the traffic pattern for a school is taken into account. We have, I call it a 15-minute problem, because traffic occurs in a 15-minute period within the peak hour. This figure shows the volumes by turn movements. The brackets show the volume of school buses. There are a total of 7 school buses serving the school today. Pedestrian activity, the counts were done in November. Pedestrian counts, in my opinion, were on the low side. They're probably higher now as the school year comes to an end. The higher the pedestrian activity for school as far as walkers, the number of cars would hopefully go down slightly. So in this case, we have a higher volume of cars and a slightly lower number of students. Reference, and I'll just flip to this side, Table 1 in the report just gives you volumes on the road during both the weekday morning and weekday afternoon. In this case, the weekday afternoon is school dismissal. We identified the peak dismissal time is 3 to 4 p.m. As far as the peak volume at the school itself. The volume on Mill Plain Road is in the range of 700 to 780 vehicles, two-way volume during the morning peak and the afternoon school peak hour. Again, there's another peak at 5, 6 o'clock at night, which is a different volume and probably a higher volume as related to someone coming off exit 21 or coming from the train station, depending on the train schedule. Lakeside Drive has a volume of typically around 125 to, well, it's 114 to 125. Most of that traffic, of course, is related to the school. If you look at the volume of traffic on Lakeside Drive, the volume going into the street from Mill Plain Road is just a couple of vehicles during either the morning or afternoon peak hour. The exiting volume is certainly from the school, and that's the higher volume on that street itself. This part of Lakeside Drive is a town road. The section, let's call it southwest of the school driveways, is a private street. The volume on that section, of course, is quite low. It's all residential, of course, like the other part of Lakeside Drive. Next step is to estimate future traffic for the school. As we've mentioned a couple of times, the school enrollment is approximately, I have 398 students. I guess it's 394 at the moment. We project eventually 510 students, or an addition of 112 students in the future. My future for this is when the school's at full occupancy or capacity, 2020, my goodness, 2020, 2021, that school year. In our estimation of site traffic, we talk about ITE trip generates for different types of schools, and we typically use those. In this case, we have a school that's there. We did the counts at the driveways. We know how much traffic is generated per student. And if I use the rate of traffic based on the current activity at the school itself, 112 students will generate an additional 74 and 58 vehicle trips during the weekday morning arrival for school, first class, and dismissal in the afternoon of 58 trips. If I break it down, for entering traffic, it's 41 new cars coming in, 33 vehicles exiting, parents obviously dropping off and leaving, for a total of 74. In the afternoon, dismissal time, 26 cars arrive, 32 vehicles exit, for a total of 58. If I was to go to my green book, the ITE Trip Generation Handbook, and apply the same student count, as far as elementary schools, it says I would have 50 new trips in the morning and 31 new trips in the afternoon. Obviously, we use the actual counts in this case for the school, and we use the higher number. So I add 74 trips in the morning and 58 trips in the afternoon. To do that, we, of course, look at the traffic patterns from the actual counts, and we develop what I call distribution and assignment patterns for the school traffic. This is showing percentages. This is figure 8 in the report for the morning peak hour. Obviously, everyone comes in the driveway. Everyone leaves this driveway. And the pattern is slightly different morning and afternoon. In the morning, we have 50-50 split coming into the driveway on Mill Plain Road. Exiting, you have 35% traveling back towards Brookside Drive or Round Hill or Duck Pond. 65% traveling south. My guess is someone going to work into town. In the afternoon, the pattern is slightly different, with same 50-50 coming in the driveway, but exiting from Lakeside onto Mill Plain Road. 40% turn left and 60% turn right to go southbound towards Uncle Road, town, and so on. That traffic, those percentages are applied to the traffic.
Sorry, Mr. Galante.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Leslie.
Do we have a 20 mile per hour school flashing zone light?
No, it's posted for 30 miles per hour. There is no school reduction speed on Mill Plain Road. There is
In your professional opinion, do you think we need one?
Well, no one does 30 miles per hour on Mill Plain Road.
Nobody
I can
does.
assure you of that.
45 miles an hour.
And fortunately, I have not seen anyone passing someone over the double yellow lines lately. Do you need it? I would say every school should be considered. We haven't considered it here, but it's certainly something we can discuss with the police commission after this.
Okay.
And we'll do that.
Please.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
But good point. And I think since the bike lanes have been put in, it's kind of tightened up the lane use, because people tend to know what lane, exactly where they should be, which is closer to the double yellow center line, as opposed to going to the curb line, which very few cars park on Mill Plain Road, but occasionally you have a car parked. And I think since the line's been striped in there, I think it's actually functioning better, it's better control. Westport put the show lines on all their roads a couple years ago, and it tended to tighten up the roads, better control. And it was done on Fairfield Beach Road with shoulder lines a couple years ago. We worked with the town on that. So I think that's actually helped the speed. It tends to tighten up things.
Rather than people going around them.
I won't show you the graphics with the volumes added to, but we obviously take the additional traffic related to 112 students. We added to a 2020, I'll call it a no-bill traffic condition, because we add traffic to the roadway system, and we go into our famous table which talks about levels of service. And I'm just going to touch on the intersection, the stop sign control intersection on Mill Plain Road at Lakeside Drive. A school project generates its peak traffic during 15 minutes. In this case, 8:45 to roughly 9 o'clock. If you look at the actual counts today, where there is a school, you can see the surge of traffic entering and exiting before that bell rings in the morning. At dismissal, school buses start arriving before 3 o'clock. Dismissals around 3:30 or so. And you actually see the peak traffic leaving the school almost by quarter to 4 to 4 o'clock. So the answers that you're looking at in this table 5, which is levels of service and delay and so on, is really a 15-minute analysis, because the peak flow is during that 15 minutes during a peak hour. All analyses focus on the peak 15 minutes, but in a school condition, the peak is very defined, it's very clear. And the peak hour factors that we deal with are different than a shopping center or residential development and so on. What this chart shows, and I won't go through all the numbers and charts, but it shows that we change level of service, we decrease it, meaning we increase delay, and in the morning we increase it on the exit lane, if you will, of Lakeside Drive on the Mill Plain Road. We increase it by 51 seconds during the morning. We increase it by 21 seconds in the afternoon. If you look at the delay, the queuing, and so on, the delay or the vehicle queuing here is actually matching, if you look at the existing condition, it's a queue delay of 6 to 8 vehicles, 6 to 9 vehicles exiting the school or exiting Lakeside Drive during the morning and afternoon peaks. It depends when the school bus is there. If there are 2 school buses, that line tends to be longer. If there are buses coming out of that side street, the delay tends to be a little bit longer because they need more time to pull out onto Mill Plain Road itself. So the delay that I'm showing, that's an increase, and I'll just say these are the numbers from the model, is a 15-minute condition. Yes, sir.
Yes. Mr. Conti, how would the numbers differ? Because again, we're going from 398 to 510 based upon the composition of students being, you know, if everybody took a school bus and there were no walkers or parents driving, did you factor that in at all? Like, you know, additional, you have 112 students, but, you know, how many of them are just going to be on another school bus?
Well, I took the same, I'll call it trip rate per student as it is today.
Okay. Trip rate per student.
It's roughly 0.68 trips per student. So if I apply that to 112 students, I get the 74 additional trips and the 58 additional trips in the afternoon.
Okay.
So for the moment, I'm assuming some percentage of those students are on a school bus.
Yeah.
Others hopefully are walking. It's a combination here of walking, school buses, and parents dropping off.
But they're still the current ones are generating traffic, so you're assuming the incremental ones will generate it at a like rate, whether it's parents picking kids up with a car or just going to school for whatever reason.
I'm applying the same ratio as it is today.
Okay.
Which is really the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
For a school, it's absolutely the best way of doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Another question?
That was my only question.
Commissioner Canelli.
6 parking spaces added, I think, total?
Yes, for 112.
Right, so pretty insignificant, I'd say.
Yeah.
Any impacts at all, issues that relate to the added, the small amount of additional parking? Didn't really come up in your calculations?
Well, the parking spaces don't generate the traffic.
Right.
In this case, it's the students and the additional parents driving and so on that generate the traffic. That additional traffic increases my delay on Lakeside Drive for what I'm calling a 15-minute period, morning and afternoon. what can I do to change that? It's a stop sign control intersection, it's a limited period of time, it's not all day long. Our recommendation is keep it the way it is today. That's really the bottom line.
The other thing, Commissioner, is if you're familiar, as I know you are, with the school itself, those 112 spaces, which are suitable for special occasion, exceed plentifully
And we had a radical
the
change
day-to-day
in track
need.
field where we were wildly underparked, and
Right.
that was a change in culture for the neighborhood.
And we talked about that at the
The
time.
neighbors right up.
Yeah, so right now, I think the parking that we have on site is going to be, would be, probably be more than adequate to meet the needs, but we did add the 6 spaces.
And I just have one last point I think is important, which is accident data. I think we want to talk about that for a moment. This is Table 2 in my report, and we collected the accident data from the police department like we always do. We write the letter, we give them the map, we ask for accident data for a 3-year period. In this case, from 2010 through 2012, 36 months. I'll just run through them real quick. At the school exit entrance from Mill Plain Road, no reported accidents. For the section of that driveway entrance to the Lakeside Drive intersection, a total of 3 accidents during a 3-year period. We've broken down 1 rear-end collision, 1 side swipe in the same direction, there's somebody possibly passing, and 1 fixed object. At Lakeside Drive, 1 accident during the 3-year period, that was a driver that lost control, slippery conditions. So, for the section of Lakeside Drive between Mill Plain and the school driveways, no reported accidents. And specifically at the school exit drives, the 2 in this case, no reported accidents. That's a quick summary of the accidents. It's in the reports, Table 2. There's actually another part to this chart in the report that breaks down contributing factors, roadway conditions, weather conditions, and so on. That's an abbreviated and quick summary of the traffic report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Galante?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentation, and subject to any questions that we can answer for you or the members of the public, and with some reservation for a brief statement based upon anything that comes up. I mean, ultimately, this committee has been working for almost 2 years. They've been extremely diligent, as have our consultants. As I said at the outset, they've been completely emphatic in terms of public work sessions, 34, as I mentioned, to kind of bring everybody in. I think if you went through that process as I did, it bears fruit, as it often does, because, you know, we had large crowds at the beginning of people with interest and questions, and those questions were generally answered, and I'm very pleased with that. Ultimately, this is about making sure that we have sufficient space for those 112 new students we've been talking about in 2020, but also to make sure that the space we have is renovated in terms of basic things when you think about it, like air conditioning and ventilation and security and sprinkler systems, so that it's comparable to what we expect all of our elementary schools in Fairfield to have. And that's what this is really all about. Every time we come before you, we've benefited the town by having a great commitment to the highest quality in educational standards and facilities, and that's paying dividends every single day for us. And it's not easy. It's not easy on you. It's not easy on these building committees. It's not easy on our taxpayers. But in the long run, we all benefit from it. And this is just the latest example of how we take a 50-year-old school, 56-year-old school, with a very proud history and tradition, and make sure that it's going to be there for the next 50 years, for the next generation of parents and children coming through. So look forward to answering any questions you or the public may have, and reserve a few minutes to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon. Are there any members of the public who wish to be heard on this item? No? Yes, sir. Just state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Thomas Braun, and I live at 200 Lakeside Drive, which is adjacent to the southwest corner of the property, and I've lived back there for over 50 years, and I'm an alumni of the school also. So I have quite a bit of input, I think. I see this as an opportunity to, correct some long-standing problems and prevent any new problems from arising and reducing the impact on the neighbors in the area. A couple of things, I'll just run through them. Sound was one issue that came up, and I've noticed that currently we can hear noises from the ventilators when they start and stop pretty loudly. I noticed that they're talking about sound screening to the north, But there's nothing to the south, and in fact, all of the ventilators open up toward the southwest directly at my house. And I believe we should have some sound screening also. They shouldn't only be worrying about the north side. If you look at the photo, those curved ventilators are pointing directly to the southwest. I think that's quite important. Landscaping is another issue. Again, on the north boundary, along the Hunter Road area, there's lots and lots of new trees that are being planted in landscaping. My family and myself, we control the entire southern boundary of the property. It's several hundred feet. I don't know exactly how much. You're not putting in a single bit of trees or landscaping or anything along that boundary. There's going to be quite a bit of disturbance. The building's going to be higher. And we can see the roof of the building from my property now, and I would like some landscaping along on the town side of the property. There's none being planned. I don't really think it's fair to do it only on one side and not on the other. The landscaping, I think, will help screen from light pollution, which is always a concern to this commission, your night skies initiative. The floodlights are on all night at that school, and it does reflect right into my property also. And in addition, I'd like to make sure any floodlights are aimed down and there's nothing aimed back. Okay, traffic. Traffic is an issue. For some reason, I went to one or two of the building committee hearings, and there was really no enthusiasm for any of the construction traffic to enter on Hunter Road, which I think is a mistake. The town is a right-of-way along Hunter Road leading right into the property. The construction and the marshalling yards are all adjacent to that side, and yet all the traffic is being routed behind the building and out Lakeside Drive, and then up to Mill Plain Road. The comment was made that there's no traffic going to Mill Plain Road. That's not true. 100% is going to Mill Plain Road by way of Lakeside Drive. I think right now, as it's planned, Lakeside Drive is bearing a disproportionate share of all the construction traffic. In fact, it's very hazardous. The intersection at the end of Lakeside Drive, there are two private roads. There are some private driveways. There's the road from the athletic fields coming from behind the school, and the main exit, all coming in a very restricted, perhaps 50, 60, or 75-foot diameter area, all entering into that spot. That's 4 or 5 or 6 traffic inputs. It's hazardous now. I myself have had accidents from people racing out of the school driveway when I was, 20 years ago, someone slammed into the side of my car. And I really think Hunter Road should be utilized for some of the construction traffic. I don't see any particular reason why not. It's adjacent, and it's actually a lot shorter and quicker and probably cheaper to pave a little bit of asphalt and go out to Hunter Road. That would disperse the traffic, the construction traffic further. During this construction, some of the fields are going to stay open. And right now, the sports parents, they park all over the basketball court and the school driveway. Where are they going to park now? Because if they park on Lakeside Drive, if they park on both sides, there's only room for one lane of traffic. And if they park there and construction trucks are going in and out, it's not going to work. Because Lakeside Drive is a two-way road. During the peak traffic times, as the consultant pointed out, very often, some of the parents even force 2 lanes of traffic going out. There's no way to get in. I mean, I myself have sat in my driveway for 5 minutes just trying to get out of Lakeside Drive. And I think some thought has to be given to reducing the traffic flow on Lakeside and not assuming that all the trucks can go out either before school or after school.
I'm sorry, I don't know. That's me. I'm right here. Over here.
Okay.
Sorry. I don't normally do this.
Yes, go ahead.
For a member of the public, but you mentioned paving a portion of Hunter.
No, Hunter Road runs right up into the school property. It wouldn't be much to pave a little bit of grassy spot and traffic can exit.
I see it as on the aerial as a cul-de-sac.
There's a big turnaround there, but the town owns property up to the school property.
With some homes that are on the back end in between the cul-de-sac?
One of these maps shows it looks like a 50-foot strip running right up to the school property.
Okay, so it's over that in between those homes?
Right where the walkway is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why I thought it would be a good access area, because it's adjacent and it's closer to the construction activities.
I just wanted to understand your comment fully.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So I think the traffic is a big issue and it should be shared and split. And then the turnaround area at the end of Lakeside Drive where all these traffic streams converge, it does have to be engineered a little better than it's being shown now. Drainage has been an issue for the last 50 years. Whenever there's a heavy rain, a lot of trash washes through the 24-inch drain line that empties the catch basins in the school and Lakeside Drive. It runs straight out through the, I guess it's the west boundary of the school property, and right past the chain link fence into the public property, it just opens. And if you go back there, it's full of bottles and trash and pen caps and God knows what else. I would like to, and I don't see any evidence on the plan, there should be some catch basins or screening culverts or something to filter out some of this trash. That's a long-standing issue that could be corrected here. If you walk into the open space, it's full of all kinds of plastic garbage. And it's unfiltered rainwater and surface runoff from the streets going right into the open space land. When it rains heavily, we actually get soil coming from the athletic fields and so on washed right onto our back lawn. It happens once a year, and I think more thought has to be given to controlling the surface runoff from this large school field and all the construction too. I don't think a few hay bales are going to do it. Okay. In the summer, maybe I mentioned this. In the summer, I'd like to know where all the sports parents are going to park. That's an issue. It can't be on Lakeside Drive. You're going to have to close the athletic fields entirely if you don't provide off-street parking for them. So they might have, sometimes there's 30 or 40 cars parked there now for football or baseball. You've got to go somewhere, and they certainly, if they go on Lakeside Drive, nobody else can get in and out. When there are school events, parents' night and so on, there are cars on both sides. There's only room for one row of traffic. And if an emergency vehicle, an ambulance, or a fire truck has to come down there, they won't be able to. I have elderly parents, and it'd be quite a situation if an emergency vehicle could not get down Lakeside Drive. I think I've covered everything. Thank you for your attention, and if anyone questions for me, being a long-standing resident, I can certainly answer them.
Thank you very much. I kind of broke the seal. We normally don't ask questions of the public, but I committed the violation myself, so go ahead.
Could you tell me where your house is?
It's on the, if you look to the southwest corner of the school property. I'll take the liberty of showing it to them. It's sitting right over here. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that wish to be heard on this item? No? Okay. Mr. Fallon, rebuttal?
Just one, if you want to answer the questions, I hope. We didn't propose any sound attenuation screening on the south of the property because you can examine it, there's no large units. We're not placing any units over on there. We did it on the north because that's where the new units are going. And we will provide you the acoustical study for your consideration. And I think it justifies clearly there's no need for, we're not putting any new units over there. Similarly, you can look at the site plan, and all due respect to Mr. Braun, but we're not doing anything adjacent or on that southerly portion of the property. You can look for it yourself. We are certainly solicitous of screening the neighbors on the north because there's a lot of activity and the addition is focused there. We didn't feel that we're changing anything with regard to the existing conditions that would warrant landscaping along that southerly border. Similarly, with regard to lights, first of all, if those lights are on at any time after 11 p.m., that you should report that to Mr. Morbido because we'll make sure the timers are working because that site goes dark primarily at 11 o'clock. Also, any new lights, and that's part of your application package, are going to be compliant with your night sky requirements and so on and so forth. So we're very mindful of that. As far as drainage, this is the most comprehensive drainage package I've seen for a public school renovation since I've been doing this for 30 years here in Fairfield. And I'll leave it to you to make that final decision because that's what counts. But we had a thorough review by the inland wetlands staff. We had a thorough review by the town engineering department. And we are significantly improving matters here relating to water runoff maintenance and quality, water quality as well. So I think that's a big plus for the neighborhood. The construction access off of Hunter just makes no sense. We heard people talk about both, and I think there's people from Hunter here tonight in the room. I mean, but the real thing is it just doesn't work. Mr. Galante looked at it, and to achieve that access at Hunter, even if you could, you'd have to go rather circuitously through a rather narrow bunch of streets on in a neighborhood. And nothing's perfect, but the best way here is to benefit from Mill Plain Road straight down to Lakeside. And that's what we think is the correct way to do it. The parking, as I said before, is going to be more than adequate to meet our needs. There's no doubt with every school. I live across the street from the Burr Elementary School. Mr. Kennelly knows Stratfield School. Holiday concert, parent-teacher night. You know, I live right on Woodhouse Road. They're parked all the way down to Townhouse. That's 1 or 2 evenings a year. That's just the nature of the beast. It's like Mr. Galante's 15 minutes of peak. But by and large, we have more than adequate parking on site, and the construction won't disrupt that. With regard to the fields, we've looked at that as a committee, and we're very comfortable that during those periods, weekend, mornings, afternoons, during the summertime, that space of about that lot of about 40 or 50 spaces right to the right as you face the school off the entrance, that kind of lot that's parked, that'll be absolutely fine. We've reviewed that with Mr. Lombardo, so we've had dialogue with the rec department to make sure there'll be an adequate, appropriate place to park for those recreational uses without disturbing anybody in any neighborhood.
So the fields will be open during the summer for Parks and Rec, for sports?
On a more limited basis, because some of the fields will be lost during the construction period, but some of the fields, not as many of them, 2 or 3, for the smaller kids will still be available, but parking will be maintained and they'll be directed to park in that lot, which will continue and currently exist to the right of the current entrance. Okay?
And there'll be a clearly marked
Yes.
space for them to walk back to the field?
Directionally, and, you know, orient them to what we're doing and how they gain access to the field, where their parents can park, so on and so forth. So that's basically just a summary of everything we looked at. We did look at all these issues carefully. We do take them seriously. The Brons are neighbors. We want to be good neighbors to them, as we have tried to be, and they have been to us over the years. These are the best solutions, though, that after 2 years of study and careful examination with a lot of input from a lot of different town departments and a lot of good consultants and the entire neighborhood, and by that I mean Hunter, Lakeside, and whatnot, we've come up with. We think it will work, and we think after what's a relatively short period of time, we'll be left with a school that, you know, meets the standards, gives the parents and kids there what they deserve, but also improves the site as far as site engineering and whatnot. Significantly.
Oh, I think I have a question for you, Mr. Fallon.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
I'm just wondering, as a gesture of being a good neighbor, if you could put some sound screening on the south. Is there any reason why not?
It's not necessary. You make the ultimate decision, but it's spending of dollars that really, quite honestly, there's not going to be any impact noise-wise.
But he already hears the noise.
But that's a decision that, you know, we'll respect you to make. Okay. And whatever you do in terms of conditioning the application, you know, we'll certainly be happy to abide by that. Did you want to say something?
Regarding the water quality issue, John mentioned that we're actually reducing the stormwater runoff. And relative to sedimentation, we're installing several sedimentation devices that collects the silt before it gets into the pipes. One of the things we're going to do is clean out the 24-inch pipe and the 12-inch pipe in its entirety to make sure it flows properly.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I am sorry the public comment period is over. The public comment period has been concluded, and the applicant is in his rebuttal. I'm happy to talk to address you on this point. Okay, the public comment period has concluded. The applicant is in his rebuttal. That doesn't mean that you can't ask questions about the plan through staff or even council after the meeting or even informally. That doesn't mean these things just disappear. Okay, we're here. Okay.
And as George was
Please
saying,
continue.
we'll be happy to discuss that further, but we do know beyond the obvious programmatic educational benefits here, we are, with the help and guidance of the Wetlands Agency and the engineering director, really making significant upgrades to water quality management and detention on the site.
Right.
I really don't have anything else, and will be very happy to answer any other questions. I do appreciate your patience and attention.
Very good. And with that, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.